In a small, forgotten town surrounded by thick forests, a mysterious artifact known as the Veil is rediscovered in the ruins of an old church. The Veil, a silken cloth with ancient, cryptic patterns, was said to have been used in dark rituals to contact the dead. Legends say whoever dares to wear it will see into the world of spirits and awaken forces best left buried. One night, curious teenagers break into the church, daring each other to try the Veil. What begins as a harmless game quickly turns into a nightmare when one of them disappears into thin air. The others start experiencing strange visions and hearing whispers calling them to return to the Veil. As the group uncovers the Veil's grim history, they learn it was created by a cursed seamstress who was burned alive centuries ago. The artifact holds her anger, sadness, and dark power. To survive, they must find a way to destroy it before the Veil consumes them all. The wind howled through the broken windows of St. Gallo's Church. The once grand building now stood in ruins, its stone walls covered in vines and moss. Inside, the air was cold, heavy with the smell of damp wood and rot. "I dare you, Mia," said Jason, his voice echoing through the empty space. "Put it on." Mia frowned, holding the piece of cloth in her hands. It was soft, too soft, like it was made of something not quite normal. The patterns on it shifted under the moonlight, as though they were alive. "Stop being a coward," teased Leah, her flashlight casting long shadows across the walls. "It's just a piece of fabric. Then why don't you wear it?" Mia snapped. Leah shrugged. "Fine." She snatched the veil and draped it over her head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Leah froze. "Leah," Jason said, stepping closer. She didn't respond. Her body stiffened, and her head tilted back as though she were looking at something above them. "Leah," Mia shouted, shaking her. Suddenly, Leah ripped the veil off and threw it to the ground, gasping for air. Her eyes were wide with terror. "What did you see?" Jason asked, his voice shaking. Leah's lips quivered. "It's watching us," she whispered. Later that night, the group sat around a bonfire in the woods. The veil lay in the middle of their circle, untouched. "You were acting, right?" Jason said, trying to sound brave. "You didn't really see anything." Leah shook her head. "You think I'd fake that? Then what did you see?" Mia asked. Leah hesitated. She glanced at the trees around them, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I saw shadows. They were everywhere, watching, waiting, and one of them, it spoke to me." Jason laughed nervously. "Okay, now you're just trying to scare us." But then they heard it, a faint voice coming from the direction of the church. "Leah, Mia, Jason," the group froze. "Did you hear that?" Mia asked, clutching Jason's arm. Jason nodded, his face pale. "It's probably just the wind." The voice called again, louder this time. "Leah, come back." Leah stood abruptly, her face a mask of fear. "We have to burn it. Right now." Before anyone could respond, the fire suddenly died out, plunging them into darkness. And then Jason screamed. When the fire went out, the world around them turned eerily silent. The air felt heavy, and the faint sound of Jason's scream was swallowed by the darkness. "Jason? Jason!" Mia shouted, spinning around, her flashlight beam slicing through the night. But Jason was gone. Leah grabbed Mia's arm. "We need to leave. Now." "We can't just leave him," Mia yelled, her voice trembling. Leah's grip tightened. "He's gone, Mia. The veil. It took him." Mia yanked her arm free and picked up her flashlight, her hands shaking. She shone it at the spot where Jason had been sitting. The ground was undisturbed. No signs of struggle. No footprints. Nothing. "Jason," Mia screamed into the woods. Her voice echoed, but there was no reply. Leah pulled her back. "We have to go back to the church." "Are you crazy? That thing is connected to the veil. If we don't figure out how to stop it, we're next." Mia hesitated, The thought of walking into the ruins made her stomach churn, but she didn't have a better plan. She gave a reluctant nod, and the two of them ran back toward the church, the veil still lying on the ground behind them. The church looked even more sinister at night. The wind howled through the broken windows, carrying faint, ghostly whispers. Mia clutched her flashlight tightly, trying to ignore the shadows that seemed to stretch and shift on their own. Inside, they found the altar where the veil had been draped earlier. Leah began searching the area frantically, flipping through dusty books and old, crumbling papers scattered across the floor. "There has to be something here," she muttered. "What are you looking for?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Answers." Leah froze, holding up a piece of paper. It was an old hand-drawn map of the church, with strange symbols scrawled along the edges. At the bottom, a single word was written in bold, jagged letters: Malvoria. "What does that mean?" Mia asked. Before Leah could answer, the whispers grew louder. The girls turned toward the doorway and froze. Jason was standing there. "Jason," Mia cried, rushing toward him. But Leah grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Wait," Leah said. Jason stepped into the room. His face was pale, his eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't say a word. "Jason, where were you? What happened?" Mia asked, her voice breaking. Jason tilted his head slightly, as if he didn't understand the question. Then he spoke, but the voice that came out wasn't his. The veil must not be disturbed. Mia stumbled back, her blood turning cold. Leah stepped forward, her voice firm. "Who are you?" Jason smiled, a slow, unnatural grin that stretched too far. "You've seen too much. You belong to her now." Without warning, Jason lunged toward them. Leah grabbed Mia's hand, pulling her away as Jason chased them through the church. His movements were jerky, almost inhuman, and his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Run!" Leah shouted. They burst through the back door of the church, stumbling into the overgrown graveyard. Jason stopped at the doorway, watching them with a chilling smile. "He's not him anymore," Mia gasped. Leah nodded, her mind racing. "He's possessed. The veil, it's controlling him." They hid behind a crumbling tombstone, catching their breath. Leah unfolded the map she had found. This word, Malvoria. "It must be the key," she said. "What if it's a trap?" Mia asked. "It doesn't matter. We don't have a choice." Leah pointed to a marking on the map. "There's a hidden room beneath the church. We need to get there." Mia hesitated. "What if we don't make it?" Leah's expression hardened. "Then Jason won't be the only one lost." Reluctantly, Mia nodded. Together, they crept back toward the church, avoiding Jason's glowing eyes as he searched the graveyard. Inside, they followed the map to a hidden trapdoor near the altar. The whispers grew louder as Leah pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading underground. "This is insane," Mia muttered, but she followed Leah down into the darkness. The air in the underground chamber was thick and stale, making it hard to breathe. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly in the dark. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested an old, leather-bound book. Leah approached the pedestal cautiously. This must be it. She opened the book, flipping through its brittle pages. The text was written in an ancient, swirling script, but the illustrations were clear enough. Depictions of the veil being used in rituals, surrounded by shadowy figures. "What does it say?" Mia asked. Leah squinted at the text. "It's a curse. The veil was created by a seamstress who was wrongfully executed for witchcraft. She poured all her pain and anger into it, binding her soul to the cloth. How do we stop it?" Leah flipped to the last page, her face pale. "The only way to destroy the veil is to burn it. But the person who burns it will die." The weight of the book's words hung in the air, making it feel as though the walls of the hidden chamber were closing in. Mia's breath quickened. "We can't burn it, Leah. There has to be another way." Leah's eyes were wide, reading and rereading the page. I wish there was, but I don't see another choice. We either destroy the veil or we become part of it. Like Jason, like the others before him. Mia's mind raced. Images of Jason's vacant, glowing eyes flashing before her. But if we burn it, we die. That's a terrible choice. Leah slammed the book shut, her voice trembling with frustration. I know, but think about it. If we don't stop it, the veil will keep consuming everyone. It's already begun with Jason, and more will follow. The sound of footsteps above them echoed through the chamber, growing louder. Mia looked up in fear. We're not alone, she whispered. Leah quickly grabbed the book and shoved it into her backpack, nodding toward the staircase. We need to hurry. If we don't stop the veil, we're all dead, including Jason. They rushed up the stairs, hearts pounding in their chests. The trapdoor slammed shut behind them with a deafening thud. As they made their way back toward the church's entrance, Leah glanced nervously around, but there was no sign of Jason. The church was eerily still. Too still. Outside, the sky had darkened further, casting long, sinister shadows across the graveyard. Mia's hands trembled as she gripped the flashlight, its beam flickering with each step they took toward the altar. Where's the veil? Mia asked suddenly, realizing it was missing. Leah stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide. It's gone. It should be right here. They both turned toward the back of the church, where Jason had last been. The veil was gone, but the marks on the ground, broken, bloody symbols, were still visible. Something was wrong. Then they heard the voice again. Mia? Leah? The whisper was soft, but it carried an unmistakable weight. It wasn't Jason's voice. It was lower, darker, almost like an echo. Mia's heart skipped a beat. It's calling us from inside. Leah nodded. We have to go back. We have to face it. They turned and made their way back into the church, only to find that the doors had swung open on their own. The air inside was thick with the stench of decay, and the shadows seemed to move. Jason stepped into view at the altar, but he wasn't the same. His eyes were completely black, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones. His mouth hung open, a low growl rumbling in his throat. He wasn't human anymore. You cannot escape, the voice said again, this time clearly coming from Jason's twisted form. The veil has chosen you. You are mine. Mia froze, her breath catching in her throat. What happened to you? Jason's lips curled into a twisted grin. I am nothing but a vessel now. The veil calls and I obey. You will obey too. Leah stepped forward, her voice firm despite the terror clawing at her chest. Jason, fight it. You can fight it. Jason lunged at them with unnatural speed, knocking Leah to the ground. Mia screamed, grabbing a nearby piece of broken wood and holding it in front of her as if it could protect her. Leah, Mia shouted, her heart racing. Leah pushed herself up, her eyes filled with determination. We don't have time to feel sorry for him, Mia. The veil, it's here, and it's stronger than ever. Mia glanced around frantically. The veil had to be somewhere. It had to be close. Then she saw it. The veil was draped over the altar, glowing faintly in the dim light. It's there, she shouted, pointing toward it. We need to burn it. Leah dashed toward the altar, but Jason was already closing in on them. His eyes burned with rage, and his outstretched hands reached for Leah. You can't destroy what is already mine, he snarled. Leah grabbed the veil, her hands shaking as she held it aloft. The whispers grew louder, rising into a shrill, agonizing scream. Mia grabbed a torch from the wall, her hands trembling as she lit it with the fire still burning outside. Leah, hurry. Leah hesitated, the weight of the decision settling heavily on her. She looked at Mia, her eyes filled with sorrow and resolve. I'm sorry, Mia. I have to do this. Leah set the veil on fire. The flames flickered to life, but as they grew, so did the voices, louder, more desperate. The entire church seemed to shudder as the fire began to consume the cloth. Jason screamed, his body writhing as though it were being pulled apart. "No!" he cried. "You will regret this. I will not be silenced." Mia turned away, covering her ears, but it was impossible to ignore the chilling, otherworldly wail that filled the air. The fire blazed brighter, and the shadows in the church twisted and writhed. When the fire finally died, the church was silent once more. The veil was nothing but ashes, scattered across the altar. Jason's body lay crumpled on the floor, still as a corpse. Leah knelt beside him, her face pale and hollow. "We did it, Mia. We stopped it." Mia looked around the church, a sense of dread still hanging in the air. But at what cost? Is he gone? Or is this just a beginning? Leah didn't answer. She only stared at the pile of ashes where the veil had once been. As they turned to leave, the church door slammed shut behind them with a deafening crash. And somewhere in the distance, they heard a whisper. "You cannot escape. The veil will always return." The next morning, the sun rose with an unnatural brightness, but the air still felt cold. Mia and Leah walked out of the church together, the ground beneath their feet still smoldering from the remnants of the fire. Mia's heart ached with the weight of what they had done. Jason was gone. The veil was gone. Or so they thought. "Do you think it's really over?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they walked across the graveyard. Leah didn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanned the horizon, as though expecting something to emerge from the trees. "I hope so," Leah said, but her tone was uncertain. Leah shook her head, dread creeping into her features. "We burned it, but it never truly left. The curse isn't tied to the veil itself. It's tied to something older, something deeper." They turned back toward the church, and that's when they saw it. The veil, whole and undamaged, was draped over the altar once more. "No, no way." Mia gasped. "How?" Leah's face turned pale. "It wasn't the cloth itself we destroyed." Mia's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" Leah stepped forward, fear in her voice. "The veil is more than just a cloth. It's a doorway, a bridge. And every time it burns, it returns. It's not the end. It's a cycle." Mia stumbled back, shaking her head. "But we can't keep fighting this forever. We have to stop it." Leah nodded grimly. "I know. But first, we need to understand its true nature. What is it that gives the veil its power?" Leah and Mia returned to the church, determined to uncover the truth about the veil. The book Leah had found in the hidden chamber was still in her backpack, and she pulled it out once again, searching for clues. This time, as they pored over the pages, Mia's eyes caught something she hadn't seen before. The same name, Malvoria, appeared again, but there was more written beneath it.
Malvoria was not merely a seamstress, but a keeper of the boundary between the living and the dead. She wove the veil to open the portal between worlds, a gate to the souls trapped in the afterlife. But her anger bound them to the veil, and her vengeance gave the cloth power beyond mortal understanding.
Leah's fingers trembled as she read aloud. "The veil can only be truly destroyed if the one who created it is freed from the curse. But this can only happen if the keeper of the veil is willing to sacrifice her own soul to release the trapped spirits." Mia stared at her, trying to process the words. "So, we have to find this Malvoria and make her free the souls trapped in the veil." Leah nodded slowly. "It's the only way. But we don't even know where to find her. The curse has bound her to the veil for centuries. But we can't just give up. There has to be something we can do." Mia's voice cracked with frustration. Leah's face was grim. "We can't stop until we find her. If we don't, the veil will consume everything. Us, the town, the world." Later that evening, as the two of them sat in the library, surrounded by ancient tomes and dusty pages, a strange feeling washed over them. The air grew thick again, and Mia felt a sudden chill run down her spine. "Leah," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you feel that?" Leah looked up sharply, her eyes widening. "It's here." Before they could react, the room grew dark, as though the night had swallowed the sun. A shadow moved across the walls, and the whispers returned. Faint at first, then growing louder, clearer. "Mia? Leah?" Mia spun around, her heart pounding. There, standing in the doorway, was the figure of a woman. She was dressed in an old, tattered gown, her long hair flowing around her like a veil of shadows. Her eyes were empty, hollow voids, and her skin was as pale as death itself. "Malvoria," Leah whispered. Taking a step forward, the woman nodded, her voice cold and hollow. "I am she, and you have awakened me." Mia's breath caught in her throat. "What do you want from us?" Malvoria's lips curled into a sad, almost pitying smile. "I have no choice. The curse binds me. You must release me, or face the eternal torment of the veil." Leah took a deep breath, her heart racing. "How do we release you?" Malvoria tilted her head, her hollow eyes staring at them with an almost mournful gaze. "To destroy the veil, to break the cycle, you must make the ultimate sacrifice. One of you must take my place. You must wear the veil and become its keeper. Only then will the souls trapped inside be free and the curse be lifted." Mia stepped back, shaking her head. "No, we can't do that. We can't become like you." Malvoria's form began to fade, her voice a whisper now. "The veil is not just a curse. It is a balance. A price must always be paid. You cannot escape it." Before either of them could say anything more, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. The next day, Leah and Mia stood outside the church, the weight of Malvoria's words hanging over them. The veil was once again draped over the altar, as though nothing had changed. "We're running out of time," Leah said, her voice hoarse. "We have to make a choice." Mia stared at the church. "What if we can't save anyone?" Leah looked at her, her eyes filled with sorrow. "There's always a price to pay, Mia. If we want to stop the veil, we have to be willing to pay it." The air grew colder as they stepped toward the church, knowing that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The weight of the decision pressed down on them as Mia and Leah stood at the church's entrance, staring at the veil. It lay on the altar like a dormant beast, waiting to be awakened. Mia could feel the pull of it, the way it seemed to call to them, drawing them closer. Leah broke the silence first. "We have to end this. If we don't, more people will die. Jason, he's not the only one." Mia turned to her. "But one of us has to wear it. Take her place." Her voice cracked, the idea of sacrificing one of them too unbearable to think about. Leah's gaze was steady, her face pale but resolute. "I know, but we both know what has to be done." The church seemed to grow colder, the shadows stretching unnaturally. A voice whispered through the room, so faint Mia wasn't sure if it was real or just her imagination. "You cannot run from fate." "She's right," Leah said, her voice tight. "We can't run from this. The veil is too powerful, and it won't stop. We don't have a choice." Mia wanted to scream, wanted to refuse, but deep down, she knew Leah was right. The veil would keep coming, and it would take more people, more lives. Jason had been the first, but he wouldn't be the last. "I'll do it," Leah said suddenly, her voice cutting through Mia's thoughts. "I'll be the one." Mia turned to her in shock. "No, Leah, no. I can't let you." But Leah stood firm, her face set with a finality that terrified Mia. "Mia, you've been through enough. This is my responsibility. I'll wear the veil and take Malvoria's place. It's the only way to stop it." Mia shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't lose you too, Leah." Leah placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, her grip firm yet gentle. "You won't lose me. I'll be free, Mia. But only if I do this." She paused, her eyes softening. "It's the only way to end the cycle, to stop the curse from continuing." Mia took a deep breath, her mind racing with the horror of what Leah was about to do. But what happens to you? What happens to you when you wear it? Leah's voice softened, but there was a sad smile on her lips. I'll become the keeper, but at least I'll be able to free the trapped souls. It's the only way, Mia. The church around them seemed to hold its breath as Leah approached the altar, the veil now beckoning her forward. Mia's heart pounded in her chest as Leah lifted it from the altar. A strange warmth filled the room, and the whispers seemed to rise in anticipation. The time has come, the voice from the veil seemed to say. The keeper has returned. Leah turned to Mia one last time, her eyes filled with an expression of both sorrow and resolve. I'll be okay, Mia. This is what I have to do. Before Mia could say another word, Leah draped the veil over her shoulders. The moment the cloth touched her skin, a wave of power surged through the room. The ground trembled beneath their feet, as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. Mia felt her heart stop, the air around her growing thick with an unnatural pressure. She could see Leah standing there, her body glowing faintly, her eyes clouded as though something was pulling her into another world. Leah, Mia shouted, but it was as if Leah couldn't hear her anymore. Leah's body began to shift, her form becoming translucent. She looked back at Mia, her expression filled with sadness and something else, something almost peaceful. I love you, Mia, Leah whispered, her voice distant and fading. Goodbye. And just like that, Leah was gone. The veil crumpled to the floor, now just an ordinary piece of cloth. But the church had changed. The air felt heavy with the souls that had been freed, the presence of something ancient and powerful now quieting the whispers. Mia fell to her knees, her heart shattered. Leah, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The church was still. No more shadows, no more voices. Only the faint flicker of light from the candle Leah had lit earlier in the evening. Days passed, and the town slowly returned to normal. The people of the town had no idea of the terror that had nearly consumed them. The veil was gone. The curse was broken. But Mia knew the truth. She knew what Leah had done, and the sacrifice she had made to free everyone. She stood at Leah's grave, the sun finally breaking through the clouds. The world felt different now, lighter in a way, but she still carried the weight of what had happened. Leah had given everything to end the cycle, to destroy the veil. I miss you, Mia whispered, her voice breaking. But I'll make sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain. As Mia turned to leave, a soft breeze stirred the air. It was as if Leah was still there, watching over her, whispering her name in the wind. And though Mia would never forget the horrors they had faced, she knew Leah's spirit was free. The veil would never return. The curse had finally been broken, and the world could begin again. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the veil. I hope you enjoyed the twists and turns as much as I did. If you liked the story, don't forget to hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future tales. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think of Leah's sacrifice, or the mysterious veil itself? Leave a comment down below, and let's chat about it.